In the game industry, microtransactions and progression systems have become more and more important even for AAA titles. Not only for the developers, but also for the players, because those systems, if done right, work extremely well. In discussions, we usually focus on the real money aspect of those systems, but today in this mini episode, I want to have a closer look at the playtime related in-game currencies. I came up with this topic because Riot Games, the League of Legends developer, recently changed its system for the new preseason. I also noticed a lot of discussion about this topic and it seems a bit controversial, especially in the case of League of Legends, but I try to approach it quite objective and from a different angle. I want to talk about what the ideas behind those systems are, using the example of League of Legends, not if it's good or bad. Still, this includes my opinion and thoughts, feel free to disagree. Also note that I like League's business model and I think it's fair. The content of this video is also for many people quite obvious, but let's start with some basic definitions. What is currency or what is money? This is a really complex question that I can't fully cover here, so we have to remain at a surface level of a definition for this video, but that is not a problem, because most games have a closed economy or an environment only the developer has access to, which excludes many special cases and interactions anyway. The first definition is quite general. Money is an item or a concept that abstracts value and can be used for exchanging goods and services. So instead of sending 1600 eggs and 900 apples to your business partner, you can send him money, these days even electronically or virtually, so exchanges are very fast and easy. Currency is a subterm and describes money in a specific area of an economy, for example a nation, and has a conversion rate to other currencies that are economically connected to it. In this context, I should also mention value. When at least one person sees value in pretty much anything and is willing to exchange or trade for it, it has value. Everything physical has probably some kind of value, but also virtual things can have value. Demand and supply is a very important concept here. And that's the boring definition part. Let's straight jump into in-game currencies at the example of League of Legends. We first look at League's old system, excluding loot boxes. Loot boxes are just there to randomize progress and increase the probability of a player to play the game until he reaches satisfaction, a state you want a player to reach as late as possible from an economical perspective. Most free-to-play games, including League, have several different currencies. A free in-game currency in League called Influence Points, short IP. They are now called Blue Essence in the new system. This currency allows you to unlock new champions and other important and not so important things for the game. You can earn it by playing the game, so it's time related. I would argue it's an abstraction of your progress. League of Legends also had a limited, now it's somewhat unlimited, second free currency too. Experience points and levels for your account. This also represents your progression and it is also time related. In the old system it unlocked things that the other currency did not unlock. Then we have Riot Points, short RP. This is the real money currency. You convert real money into these points, but in League and many other games you can only convert specific amounts and the numbers are chosen in a way that you will have points left for a very long time. You can argue that's not fair, but it's a free-to-play game and this is one tactic of the developer to get a little bit extra money out of you. And the last one is actual real money. Riot as a company does need real money to pay the employees, the bills, invest and make a profit. Riot as a company only wants this currency. And here we are at a very important point. If Riot only wants real money, why are they not simply put a price at everything or make it a box and let people pay for it directly? Why bother with all those currencies? Control. They want a system they control and they make the rules for. That would not be the case with real money. It also obscures value with an additional layer of economic complexity. If I would ask you, do you know out of your head what the conversion rate of your favorite free-to-play game's real money currency to real money is, would you know the exact answer without looking it up? Or the exact price of a new champion in League? If I would ask you how much the last game you have bought was, or your MMO subscription, your answer would be most likely quite accurate. That is what I mean with obscure. You know it approximately, but not for sure, which helps the developer to get away with some tricks and lowers the awareness of how much you actually have spent over time. That is why parts of the free-to-play business model is so attractive for many publishers and developers right now, and not the classic full-price game alone. Because even full-price games start to include this model, because it works. In case of League of Legends, it is just free-to-play. You don't have to pay a single dollar for it, which generates some kind of attraction marketing-wise too. Just download it, try it, and see if you like it. You don't lose money, only some time. It's like a demo that you can upgrade by playing it. I would argue it's better than a demo. For this model to work well, League of Legends is in constant development, which costs money. In classical business models for games or games distribution, it becomes harder and harder to sell your game, for example in stores at some point, without dropping the price significantly. If the PR efforts or the hype decreases, the interest of potential customers decreases too. Minor updates, a new hero unit and some skins do not offer enough for PR to hype up the game every month for years. That is why initial sales on release are often the most important for full-price games and alike. That is also why free-to-play is such a good model for League. It's a pay what and whenever you want model, and through the partially monetized new content that gets released every month, the game generates a constant revenue stream. With those updates and the game's core design, the replay value is very high and a player base becomes invested, which leads into the player base promoting the game constantly, plus the developer's own PR efforts. So it's hard for it to lose relevancy over time, and Riot is very good at this, else League would not have been so successful over the last 8 years. So it's a perfect fit for a model and a development concept aiming at never stopping development. But we still haven't fully answered the question, why is there a free in-game currency? Why is it needed? The answer is quite interesting. Time and again control. The in-game currency is, so to say, crowd control for the player's progress. It offers a developer options or tools to manipulate the player's behavior a little bit. Riot Games can control to a certain degree how a player progresses, what the player does, and how likely it is for him to spend real money, depending on how invested he is into the game. Of course, they can't overdo it, because that will annoy people. It has to be carefully balanced. So what League of Legends does is implementing reasons for players to invest this free currency in things that are not really causing the highest development costs, like icons. The biggest example are runes before pre-season 2017, especially around season 1 to season 4 or maybe 5. When your account hits level 30, you unlock all 30 rune slots. Runes are account items that, if equipped, give your champion in-game a little stat boost for each rune, so they can complement your playstyle and give you an advantage. Runes can only be purchased with IP, the free currency. It's not possible to buy them with real money. For pre-season 2017, this system was totally changed, but we come later to that. This little stat boost was not only a nice addition, but a core gameplay mechanic. Some champion roles would be very limited without runes, like jungling, and you would also have a noticeable disadvantage against players with runes should you decide to not use them in competitive play. This was not an option. So at some point you had to make this huge in-game currency investment, else you were playing at a constant disadvantage. Usually you started buying them when your account was level 20 or close to 30, because back in the day you could only equip the best runes, the tier 3 runes, with account level 20 if I recall correctly. I think they changed it at some point. So you waited with runes until level 20 and then started to buy the tier 3 runes, not wasting much IP on lower tier runes. It was like an unwritten law. This is important because I mentioned player investment. On account level 20, you have invested quite some time into the game already, and now you are close to buying runes, which definitely will enhance your gameplay experience. This rune investment in League for the most common standard builds was about 15,000 to 20,000 in-game currency, and you probably needed several builds or rune pages, which of course also cost currency if you wanted more than 2 rune pages for convenience. So 1 or more rune builds for most roles and champions could cost you up to 100,000 to 150,000 IP. I would say I have spent that much or even more on my runes over the years, and I'm probably no exception. Now, if we think about how many champions you could have unlocked with this, that are about 3 to 24 champions for 6,300 IP each, which are the most expensive ones. So your in-game progress for unlocking that many champions, which are the main releases of content for League of Legends and were released every 2 weeks back in the day, is just gone into a necessary game mechanic. But of course, you have probably invested 100 hours or far more worth of playtime already. And here we are at another crucial point. Because of that, the probability of a player for spending real money increases at exactly this point. At least that was the case for me. I knew I would continue playing, and the new champion or a new skin looked nice. I had no IP left to spend, so why not spending a bit of money? It was justified and also well earned by Riot Games. That's how free-to-play games work. I didn't need to spend money on it, I decided to do so, but it was also not a coincidence, because the business model is designed that way that the probability will spike exactly here. With every hour played, the inhibition threshold for the player spending real money is also lowered, and with a bit of crowd control through the in-game currency, over time it becomes quite likely that players will spend money, else Riot Games would be bankrupt. With this said, it slowly becomes clear that influence points, the name is quite fitting, are not actually free. They have a value through time which is connected to your money spent. Because when it comes to in-game progression, like unlocking new champions, there is a shortcut. Just buy champions with real money. Remember the currency definition? Currency describes money in a specific area of an economy, for example a nation, and has a conversion rate to other currencies that are economically connected to it. Influence points have a conversion rate because the game strictly defines newer champions cost 6,300 IP or 975 RP. That is the conversion rate, and both currencies are also money. Money is an item or concept that abstracts value and can be used for exchanging goods and services. And when at least one person sees value in pretty much anything and is willing to exchange or trade for it, it has value. I exchange my time-related money, the influence points, for a virtual good that has value to me. So this applies to League's currencies, even the free ones. And this is actually a little surprise, but if you think about it. Let's imagine IP could be gifted to other players, which is not possible and never will be. I claim that people would start selling IP on eBay or other platforms. Initially, they would orient at Riot's own defined exchange rate. 6,300 IP to the real money value of 975 RP. Of course, they would sell it a bit cheaper than Riot. That would be bad news for the company. As mentioned, Riot points can only be bought in specific amounts, so after spending RP, there is always a certain amount left benefiting Riot Games. With this, people would use only eBay IP for buying champions and other things, because it would, except for sales, always be cheaper. Those IP have value, if it would be possible, even real money value, as long as the price is low enough. That is also why it will be never possible to gift IP, because Riot would give up the full power of their crowd control and sell less RP. This also adds to the value of IP. While you earned those IP, you were part of League's carefully designed economic system. This system is solely about probabilities created to make Riot Games money, and it works. So IP definitely have value for Riot Games, and with all this and your time investment into the game, also a value for you, which directly implies that even though you have not spent any real money on the game, you still have earned something of value and generated real money for a company, even if you haven't spent anything. With playing the game, you are part of the game's economy. You have allowed matchmaking and the game to function, allowed for a good or bad experience for others, presented content to other players, maybe created desire for buyable content. And if you told your friends about it, you have promoted the game, all things of actual value. You just did by playing and investing your time. As said, it's about probabilities. At some point, someone will buy something for real money, influenced by those influence points, be it their own or that of others. If you think IP are free and worthless anyway, you are selling yourself and your time short. Your time is valuable. Now at the end, we finally come to the original story. Riot has changed this system. In pre-season 2017, IP will now be called Blue Essence. Prizes for champions won't change and runes will be removed. The new rune system is totally free. Even new players have complete access to it. No IP grind required. We come to why they do this in a moment. Now, what happens to all those IP spent on runes? Players get a refund in form of the new Blue Essence currency. And here's something interesting. Players who bought runes between December 2016 and September 2017 get a 1-to-1 conversion. It's important to note that rune prices were changed several times over the course of the last 3 years and got much cheaper lately. All runes bought before that date get, depending on the rune and the amount of IP spent, a worse conversion rate. In my worst case, I get 1 blue essence for 8 IP spent, so 1/8 of what I spent originally. Usually it's around a third or a quarter, I guess. And because the prizes, for example champions, did not change, this means a purposeful devaluation of the free currency spent in the past. I'm a bit surprised that the outcry is so small, to be honest. They just collected the progress of a lot of players, divided it by a number and still kept all the money they earned through it. But I guess IP were already very inflated, so people did not know on what to spend them anyway, so it actually doesn't matter. Still, it's a massive devaluation of old currency, but why did Riot do this? My theory is that they are scared of inflation or something similar to it. This is actually a very strange effect. I'm not sure if it is described correctly by the term inflation. Inflation is basically a devaluation of money. I have a better definition, but that would go too far. So what would be devalued if the prices are set into stone by Riot Games anyway and pretty much never change? The crowd control effect would inflate. The inflation would happen to the blue essence, but the Riot points would be mainly affected because champions are still 6,300 blue essence at 975 RP. The prices are still the same and exist in a closed economic system, so the devaluation somehow moves to another layer. The purchase probability through spending blue essence increases and the purchase probability for RP decreases for a while because RP would devalue in relation to real money outside of skins. That means blue essence is cheap and plenty, but the value is artificially kept at the same level, so blue essence does not lose buying power. RP are now too expensive and for purchases possible with blue essence a waste, which actually makes RP less valuable in League's in-game economy. Some people would use their additional 30,000 to 150,000 blue essence to unlock stunning 5 to 24 champions. That is a ton of content, and people would be very happy and probably satisfied with this, testing all the new champions or not, which could still lead to increased skin sales, which is a nice side effect. As mentioned, satisfaction is a state that is not always good for Riot point sales, so Riot has to artificially decrease the amount of IP or blue essence existing in the game's economy. The older players have probably the hugest amount, so they start cutting there. They probably have unlocked everything they need anyway. In addition, Riot will also allow to purchase other things for all that converted blue essence, like some rare skins, icons, emotes and so on. Of course to very high conversion rates, so these high blue essence amounts get burned and they can decrease the inflation and increase the probability again for all players to buy new champions with real money from time to time, securing and maybe increasing their revenue stream for days to come. Also, the assumption has to be made that Riot built a new system to control the crowd more efficient or as efficient as the old system, because everything else would make Riot lose money and be with that a stupid business decision. So in my opinion, they want to get rid of some satisfaction by bringing something new in form of a big update. They also tried to invite new players, removing the grind for runes. They carefully reduce high amounts of IP older players are sitting on, and they focus more on their loot box system, because loot boxes add an RNG based shortcut that can lead to players spending their in-game currency for elements they probably find interesting but not necessarily want, and still buy the element they want but don't get for real money, while the player still feels rewarded. But why is Riot going through all this trouble? A big update like this causes a lot of attention. It also removes the level grind, which took up to probably 90 hours and more to fully access a basic gameplay mechanic, which seems like an overwhelming hurdle for new players trying to get into the game. From this perspective, they can market this update big, get exposure and invite new players to try their game, now without that grind. In addition, the new system, including loot boxes, obscures all of this quite well and gives access to some free stuff, which can make it easier for new players to become invested. That is also why PR is focused on mentioning that the new update will benefit new players. From my perspective, a smart business move, executed well. You can also transfer this to almost all other similar free-to-play-like business models, but never forget, there's always a company behind it that needs and wants to earn money, and it wants this money from their player base. Thank you for watching.